Well, hello there, my brothers and sisters. It's Josh Packard. Welcome to another episode of The Golden Image of Churchianity is a Lie. I want to talk to you today about the Nethinims and the Cherethites and the Pelethites. I want to talk to you about Melchizedek, Aruna, or Ornan, whatever you want to call him. I want to talk to you about Joshua and the temple, and I want to kind of show you some weird things that I've been noticing in the scriptures, which are awesome things, and they should be clear types for us to see what rule and authority we're really under. See, the temple, the outer tabernacle, and the holy place. They're in Revelation. They're gone. There's only the Holy of Holies left in Revelation. I want you to kind of always keep this in view, that there is this outer tabernacle that has to be destroyed, and even it says so in Hebrews. As long as it remains standing, the true way to the Holy of Holies is not yet thrown open. So your observances of the law and your self-righteousness and concerning your sin and fighting and struggling with sins and fighting with your atonement and fighting with your salvation, all these things, as long as you're doing these things, you cannot enter in to the kingdom. You can't enter into the Holy of Holies. You can't enter into the presence of God because your sin prevents you. And I'm not saying because God is not allowing you in, because that's not what he's doing. Your own sin blinds you from the entrance because you're so busy trying to earn what you've already been given. You just keep missing the door. Keep running into the wall right next to it. Tunk, tunk. So I want you guys to see the church is evil 100% right now. It is completely backwards from what it's supposed to be. The message is never if you were saved, you would believe. It is you were saved that you would believe. That you have peace with God because of Jesus while you're an enemy. There's no stipulation, none. And if you put a stipulation, you are doing Satan's work. Because what happens is because people have this idea in their head because of sin that there's an image that they have to meet or establish themselves to in order to be the right form of worshiper or person or whatever they think. Atheists, Christians, everybody has this idea of the proper person they ought to be. And I want you guys to see that that is the result of your sin in you. That is the result of Satan accusing you. All your works are from that accusation. From how you comb your hair to brush your teeth, whether or not you have tattoos, whether you're a biker or whether you're a horse rider, whether you're a banker, politician, whatever you are, everything that we've been doing, preachers, everything that we are and we've fabricated ourselves to is because of that accusation. That's called the man of sin. The man of sin is false and it prevents you from fellowship, and I'll show you how. So like if you and I were going to meet with each other and we wanted to be best friends, but what I did to you is that I presented myself how I wanted to be perceived or how I thought you wanted to perceive me. And likewise, you were doing the same thing. So you're trying to be a good Christian, and I'm trying to be a good Christian. Well, we could be 2 feet away, but we would never know the truth of each other because we're both acting. Imagine now before God, whenever you're conscious of your sin and you're trying to appear as though you're a polished turd, as you're trying to give the best before God and make yourself the best appearance that you can be, you cannot fellowship with God because you're presenting a lie to him. So though the Lord sees everything and knows you in all truth, you will not allow yourself to know him because you'll only put yourself in his position and judge what he would want and then try to obtain that. And that's exactly what Cain did, you guys. So everything in the church is from this system of I want to be this proper worshiper. How I get there is by taming my sins and quit jacking off and quit blah, 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 all these things. And you're always concerned about polishing yourself up and trying to quit cussing, drinking, smoking, chewing, whatever you're doing. Well, as long as you focus on those things, you are conscious of your sin. You will present a false image before God, and you cannot fellowship with him. That's it. That's the entirety of Christianity. And it all comes from the position that says you have to believe to be saved. Because saying that you can believe is a lie. It actually treads the blood of Christ underfoot, puts him to an open shame. But since you lift this one burden on him, now your entirety. So what you're really saying to yourself, not realizing it, is that you have free will. If you had free will, you could have chosen God at any time and accurately your entire life. You would be able to do it. Well, tell that to Paul. Tell it to Gideon. Tell it to Moses. Tell it to all these other guys. You're full of shit. Big time. And because you are full of shit, you cannot fellowship one with another, nor with God. And your hypocrisy is glaring because everyone can see you're just pretending. If you wanted to honor God, you would say, I've been saved. I have no more need to pretend. But as it is, you dishonor him with every single vestige of your church. Sorry. Like me, don't like me, I don't care. I'm not a pastor. I'm not subject to your opinions. Okay. All right. Now, let's get on to these Nethinims. These are really cool. Okay, we all know, well, you should know who Melchizedek is. If you don't know who Melchizedek is, you really need some help because you haven't read your Bible at all. But Melchizedek is a clear sign of Jesus. Or a type, or whatever you want to say. But anyway, we know that he is because Hebrews points it out and says that this guy Melchizedek, and whenever Abraham, the patriarch of all of our faith, whenever he took back the spoil from a battle, he brought a tithe to Melchizedek. And we see in Hebrews that this king Melchizedek had no beginning nor end. He had no record of mother or father. He had a priesthood that was eternal. And it's showing a picture of Christ in his eternal priesthood, that he's high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Okay? Not after the law or under Aaron or Levi. He's a completely different set of ordinances that the law was under. It's kind of like Moses. Moses made the law and instituted everything. Well, God made the law, but Moses was the symbol of the law. He put together all the tabernacle. He did everything, but he himself was not subject to the law. He married a Cushite wife. There was a lot of things that Moses didn't do. So he made the law for them, but he was subject to a different law. Because whenever they tried to bring something up to him, God, when Miriam and in Numbers 12:12, it always blew my mind when I was a kid why this happened. But then finally I understood it. And I was like, oh my God. So what happened was Aaron and Miriam brought charge against Moses saying that they were more worthy than him and blah, blah, blah. They brought a charge of him about his Cushite wife, and God stepped in and says, you know what? How dare you talk to my friend Abraham? I talk with him face to face. I mean, other people might see him in visions or anything else. I talk to him face to face. He says, how dare you even talk to him like that? And God struck her with leprosy for 2 weeks. After even Moses and Aaron prayed for her and everything else, because God was going to wipe her out because they dared to challenge Moses' authority. But Moses didn't operate under the same law that he gave them. Okay? Just like Jesus, when he showed up, he operated under a completely different law than the Pharisees were operating under. I just want you guys to see that there is a fruitlessness there's a deception that's been pulled over your eyes that God is trying to show. And he wants you to know that the Israelites were only there. They were only there to point to Messiah. Because if you look back, you're going to see there are many other people. Look at Balaam. I always wondered, what the heck Balaam? He knew God. You look at Abimelech. You look at Pharaoh in the time of Abraham. Abimelech was in the time of Isaac. And you start looking at all these people that knew God. Look at Jacob, Laban. Look at Laban, look at all his family in Ur. I mean, all these people knew God, the Canaanites. So you're going to look at this. Okay, well, let's look at Melchizedek. It says he was the king of Salem. It wasn't just an imaginary place, that king of that Salem. It's actually called Jebus. And it was actually the city that was there before Jerusalem. It also contained Mount Moriah, wherever Isaac was taken, and where Christ was crucified, if you ever want to really look at it. But it's also the threshing floor. It's also the site of the temple. It's everywhere is there in this Jebus. Okay? This is crazy. You guys are going to bear with me and just watch this stuff. Okay, so we see Melchizedek, the king of Salem, which is Jebus. Okay, then we see these Jebusites whenever Joshua comes and takes the land. And there's many other mentions of them, but for now I just want to focus on these. So then Joshua comes in, takes over the possession, and God said wipe out everybody in Canaan, right? But these Jebusites, they were smart. They tricked Joshua by wearing old clothes and having moldy food, and they tricked that he was there from this far off country, and they made a league with Joshua so Joshua couldn't destroy them. And he's like, shit, what do we do with them? So he makes some drawers of water, hewers of wood. They brought the oil, the incense. They did everything that was pertained to the temple. They were like temple slaves, doulos, if you guys know, slave of Christ. But let's just keep poking. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up. I'm trying to build the case here, but they're slaves of something. They're slaves of the temple. They're slaves of the Christ, Melchizedek, and Aruna, which when you get to the time of David, whenever David numbered the people, God made a big plague on them. In order to stop the plague, he had to go make a sacrifice. But he had to do it he had to find this place to do it, so he wanted to do it on the threshing floor of Ornan. So, or Aruna, if you, depending on whether you're Samuel or, Kings, whatever one you're reading. But what turned me on is this time in Samuel, I believe it was, I was like, it said that as a king, he offered that to King David. He offered the threshing floor to King David for free, without cost. And David said, "Oh, I gotta pay for it." And I find the significance of that. Maybe one of you guys know, but whether he was right or wrong in paying for it, because he could have just received it for free, and that was the future site of the temple. But this Aruna, now Ornan was a king of Jebus. Was it Melchizedek? Because it doesn't say Melchizedek. It just says he's the Melchizedek, king of Salem. So this guy's his name is Aruna or Ornan. And he's also the king of Jebus. He's the king. As a king, he was going to give that threshing floor to king. And you're like, who is this guy? And you're like, oh, what the heck? So then you see these Jebusites, they're involved again. And the king of Salem is involved again. So these Nethinims, they're currently in the tabernacle, this and that. But, working around, those Jebusites are slaves of the temple, or the tabernacle at this point. Well, guess what gets built on the threshing floor of Ornan, which is in Jerusalem? It is the temple gets built there. Right on that spot. Really interesting. So we keep going through the time, and we see the temple being built up during the time of Solomon. And these Nethinims are in there. They're working away, doing whatever they do, which is very significant, because if anyone from any other tribe of Israel tried to walk in there, they'd be struck down dead. They could go places that the Levites couldn't go, that only priests could go. They could go kind of basically anywhere except for the Holy of Holies, anytime they wanted. And it doesn't say they were forbidden from the Holy of Holies either. You know what I mean? That I've seen so far. So, anyway, these guys are just like, they're janitors in the king's castle. They're, and it would be funny if they could go in the Holy of Holies and they're just doing janitorial service, but nobody else can go in there. I mean, it'd just be really interesting being the slave of God, slave of Jesus, you guys. So, we keep going through these Nethinims, and they're there all the whole time. So we go even to Babylon. When they get taken away to Babylon, when the Jews get taken away, the Nethinims got taken away with them. Then the Nethinims came back with them. They were given a portion and a place in Jerusalem. They were given a place in the temple. It's unbelievable. It's like, what the heck? How did these Jebusites maintain their position this entire time? And they could go anywhere. They could see anything. See, part of this whole thing about the vicarious sacrifices is that you could see that you didn't do anything for your salvation. That all the work that was done for it was done for you without even your knowledge. You didn't even know what was going on in there. You didn't get to see it at all. The only thing you could do is present you and that lamb that was your substitute. That's all you could do is present yourself. This is starting to make sense to you, because you could look at Romans 12. Present yourself as a living sacrifice. So, and to be a living sacrifice is to sacrifice from the old self, the old needs, the old life, and present yourself before God. So you've actually repented, and when you repent, you present yourself. So these Jebusites were always present, and they were always presenting themselves before God. They were kind of like a living sacrifice. So were the Levites. So was the tribe of Levi. They were living sacrifice. They were priests that were set aside, and they were only for the purposes of God's works. And that's what a living sacrifice is, you guys. Because the Levites, the only reason they were taken out is because God killed the Egyptian firstborn rather than them. So then, since God spared them, he took of them a tribe. So that tribe is the dead ones. They're basically, they're never counted in the genealogies or anything until you get to Revelation, which is really interesting. Really, really interesting. Because if you look in the genealogies in Genesis, they're not in the genealogy, but Dan is. But you get to Revelation and Dan's no longer there. Really interesting stuff. And if you know what Dan means judgment. So the whole time that the tribes, in the Old Testament, it's called the Old Testament times, as they were, Dan was present in them, judgment was in them. But then when you get to Revelation, and the revelation of Jesus, they're in the time of judgment is not in them, but the priesthood is. Really interesting. And if judgment was identified, then the priesthood is identified. I think it has a lot to do with the kings and priests that Christ made us. But anyway, I'm getting on all these little tangents. So look at these Nethinims. So then when they come back from Babylon and they're given a place and they're helping to build the temple, they're everywhere in it. They're completely invested in all places. So how does that pertain to us today? Well, we had the Jews that were under the law and they had access to God through the law, which we never had. You being a Gentile, you don't have access to the law. You only have access by faith, okay, to God. So look at these Jebusites. So we know that Melchizedek, because Paul says that the promise is given, it can't be annulled 430 years later by the law. So the promise was before the law, just so you guys know. So then if you're trying to go about to establish the righteousness of the law, you're still outside the kingdom, because there is no access to God through the law now. Because if you really look in Revelation, see, there's 3 divisions to the temple, 3 divisions to the tabernacle in the Old Testament. In Revelation, there is only 1 division of the temple, which is the Holy of Holies. That's it. We see in Hebrews that it says the true way in the Holy of Holies cannot be entered into until the outside tabernacle is removed. So then in you, the outside tabernacle, it is like symbolic of religious washings, cleanliness of the flesh, all these things pertaining to the law. But the thing is, as long as you're still caught up in them, you've not entered the kingdom. And the reason you're still caught up in them is because judgment is still in you, that Satan is still condemning you, okay? That you're still being accused, which means sin still has this dominion over you. So look at Cain. Cain, God said, sin has dominion over it. It's seeking to have dominion over you. You must master it. How do you master sin? It's really easy, you guys. Really easy. I mean, you'll be surprised at how easy it is. So we'll look at Cain's sacrifice. He offered up of the fruits of the soil, which he thought, oh, this is what God would like. This is the sacrifice you should accept. Right? So he's usurping God of his own sacrifice, doing all of his good works and doing everything he does, because he was upset when God had no respect for his sacrifice. But can anyone guess why Abel's sacrifice God had respect for? Because it was of the flock. And the reason that's significant is because when Adam and Eve covered themselves, which pertained to Cain's covering, or Cain's sacrifice, God slaughtered a lamb instead of them. And Abel was witnessing that God's sacrifice was right and enough. So today, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, and if you're calling yourself a Christian, and you still have to believe to be saved, or you're still caught up in your sin, worrying about your sin, whether or not you're even saved, you're not a Christian yet. And I'm not saying that to say, to bash on you. What I'm trying to say is that there's still more to come. You have hope. Because you haven't entered into the kingdom yet. You're not in the likeness of Christ yet, so you're not a Christian. But to be in the likeness of Christ is, okay, first of all, to be out of the likeness of Christ is anything false. So if you're still conscious of sin, you're still going to establish your own righteousness. To establish your own righteousness is contrary to God, what he made you to be. You're imagining a picture, because you've acknowledged that you're less than righteous. You have to imagine something more righteous than you, and then you have to go and pursue that righteousness, which might even be good, but it's not godly. It has nothing to do with God. It's only your attempts at righteousness, which God will not have any respect for your sacrifices. None. Because it draws you away from him, and it denies the blood that Christ shed for you. It's actually blasphemy, you guys. So, on the other side of things, if you want to be in the likeness of Christ, it's the truth. And the only thing that separated Jesus from you and me is that he was born not under Adam. He was the only begotten Son of God. So how did he sound whenever he was talking about God? Oh, God is always happy with me. I love my God loves me. My Father loves me. I always do the things which please my Father. Which of you can convince me of any sin? You know, over and over and over again, he had a clean conscience all the time because his conscience wasn't based on good and evil. It was based on the goodness of God. Because God created you right. He is a great creator. Therefore, you are right. But you deny that when you say, oh, I'm a sinner. You acknowledge Satan's accusation, and you go about to conform yourself to an image of without your understanding. That's why I say the golden image of churchianity is a lie. Because everything you're aspiring unto is the exact opposite direction where God is. And you're teaching everyone else to do the same thing. You are the cancer of God's kingdom. You, woe unto you, for you did not enter the kingdom, and you prevented them that were. Woe unto you, you encompass sea and land to find one student. As soon as you find him, you'll make him twofold the sons of hell that you are. Your father is the devil. He lied from the beginning. Your father is the devil. I mean, on and on and on. He wasn't saying that to provoke them. It was the truth. Your father today is the devil if you are part of the church system. In any denomination. I don't care. Then you have these home groups that do the same thing as church. They just do church at home. It's the same thing. They still preach the same doctrines. They still think they're super deep. They have no understanding of any of the principles that are going on that pertain to freedom and righteousness and equity and liberty. None. You guys, you're free. Liberty is to be able to think and speak and do what you want. To think without being ashamed. To manifest what God created you to be. Not some image that you think is acceptable and politically correct. I don't give a shit what Christians think anymore. I don't bow down to their images. I don't feel guilty for not even being around them. I don't feel guilty for anything anymore. I am what I am. Oh, wait a minute. Is that what Jesus said? I am? So those that are in his image would be I am. You wouldn't be I should. So if you want to be in the image of Christ, you must be in the truth. The only way to be in the truth is to have no conscience of sin. To have no conscience of sin is actually to believe that Christ was victorious on that cross and live like it. And you are ordered to take his righteousness, to be righteous because he is righteous, to be holy because he is holy. You have been commanded it. It's not just an option. And you're thinking, I'm not holy because you listen to Satan. And you try to compare yourself to an image that you imagined, which was stupid because you've never seen what God intends for you to do. He made you a specific tool for his own task, which you have no idea what that task is. As long as you're going about to fix yourself and change yourself, you might as well be changing yourself into something God has no need for. So the next thing is you must be unemployed from your own tasks. You must be unemployed from your idea of righteousness. You must accept that you are righteous so that you can do the righteousness of God. Because the only person that can do the works of righteousness is a person who is righteous, a conscience clean of sin. And sin not being your jacking off or doing the things you do, your sin being your consciousness of being less than what you ought to be with God. You are right with God today. He made you that way. Yeah, of course, you don't want to do the things that are damaging. You don't want to hate. You don't want to kill. You don't want to murder. You don't want to be a homo. You don't want to adulterate. You don't want to do all this stuff. Definitely. These are the things, if you can quit on your own power, try. But the thing is, that won't get you righteousness before God. It won't get you to heaven. It won't do anything for you other than spare you in this life all the grief that those things associate with. And those around you that have to bear with you. But that's not what causes righteousness, you guys. Your righteousness is that Christ rose. Your righteousness is that he is sitting on the right hand of God, that he has transformed you, that he has made you right. He has translated you into his kingdom by the virtue of his death, burial, and resurrection. You were circumcised then. You were baptized then. It's over. Okay? You guys. I'm speaking to those that want to serve the Lord, that want to do what he wants, that wants to fulfill his desires and his commands. Those of you that, like me, that want to serve him with your whole heart, that it's constantly what you want to do. That's all you can dream about and think about. Wake up in the morning thinking about God with him on your lips and praying and reading and seeking him every single day. I love the Lord. It's what I was made to do. I enjoy reading the scriptures. I enjoy seeking the Lord and asking him questions and finding all these nuggets that he puts in here, like the Nethinims. I'm like, what the hell? And all these things come together when you see it. You start seeing that there is many believers before the Jews came, before the Hebrews came into the land. There were many people believed in God, but they weren't elected under the purpose of the Israelites. The Messiah was hid in them. The Israelites were just a womb for the Messiah, but also for God to show and display himself in them, to show his purpose and his design, so that we could see it through the law, that we could see what the law was for. And everybody sees that just the 10 commandments. You should not do this, you should not do this. And that's true. You shouldn't do those things. But the thing is, the second side of it, you need both. You need the blood sacrifices too, which now you confess your sin. And it's not just, oh, I jacked off. I'm lost, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. Am I going the right way? I'm lonely. Am I good enough? Am I right with you, God? I mean, I don't believe I am, and blah. It's not I'm jacking off, God, please forgive me. It's, Father, please, I feel guilty. I'm ashamed. I don't know how to get to you. Please show me how to get there. Okay? The only thing I can ever tell you that I asked the Lord whenever I first met him was, I want to surrender to you. I don't know how. And bam. I mean, bam. So I want you guys to see, it's not your sins are not the things that God wants you to confess. He wants you to confess your sin so that he can cleanse you from all unrighteousness, that he can make you into his very image, make you righteous as he is righteous on this earth. Because really, it should be as he is, so are we on the earth. This is how it should be, you guys. All right. Be a Nethenim, you guys. Be in peace. Be safe. Be a slave to the temple. Go everywhere they're going. Everywhere that temple goes, you go. Whatever it does, you do. It's just, you're unemployed. You're like, oh, you need me to hew hew wood today? Okay. You need me to get some oil? Okay. You need me to go over here? Okay. You're just unemployed. You're just, whatever's needed of you, whenever God needs it, you're ready to go. Oh no, I'm a missionary. Oh, but now I'm a pastor. Oh no, but I speak in tongues. Oh no, oh no, oh no. And everybody's like, oh, I found my purpose in Jesus. Well, if you're only stuck with your one purpose, what if God needs you to do something else? Anyway, your righteousness and God's righteousness are two different things, you guys. God's righteousness is just peace with him, to where you're accepted in the beloved, that you're all the way in and safe, that there's nothing that can remove you from his hand, because Christ and the Father are one, and you are one with them. All right, my brothers and sisters, hope this helps. The Nethinims are kind of fun. If you guys have any questions or you want to add to this, let me know. All right, guys, have a great day.